refuge for the very toxic snake on the planet, a paradise for rabbit lovers, a temple where they worship rats, and the notoriously famous Ramree Island. Where are we going today? In this episode, you'll know about the places invaded by different animals. Kings of deserts. What do you think I mean by those two words? Maybe some wild cats or camels for their amazing endurance? Actually, no, it's not so obvious. The kings of the desert are tacitly referred to by many as inland taipans. This snake lives in Australia, preferring dry plains and deserts. Periodically it hides in cracks, small breaks in the soil, as well as in other places where it's not easy to find. And here's where a second unexpected fact awaits us. Many of those who hear about this creeper for the first time and pay attention to the word hides in any case will think that our guest is quite weak and cowardly, that this taipan doesn't want to fight at all. And you know, there's some truth to that last fact. The inland taipan is the most venomous snake in the world. This reptile is not small in size. It often grows under 6.5 feet in length, although it can be larger. Interestingly, it's the only snake in Australia that changes color depending on the season. In winter, for example, it's noticeably darker. The diet of kings consists almost entirely of small mammals. It's not difficult at all for our hero to cope with them. Scientists have calculated and found that the poison of this taipan is about 180 times stronger than that of the cobra. Its semi-lethal dose is only 0.01 milligrams per pound. And if we take into account that each snake, on average, produces 44 milligrams of venom, it turns out that the inland taipan can finish off about 100 people or 250,000 mice. The exact number of these snakes is still being debated. Some think it's not too many of them in the deserts. Others say that they almost filled the entire sandy space of Australia. In any case, I suggest that we should not go to the place of their residence and stay safe and sound. Although, if I were a scientist, I'd probably dare to fly in for a visit. The thing is that the inland taipan is an extremely calm snake. If you know how to behave properly, it'll never attack, and it's not likely to bite. Firstly, it's not interested in humans at all. Even if it kills us, the inland taipan is unlikely to eat a human, or it'd take too long. Like I say, it's much easier for a snake to hunt small mammals. And secondly, this snake tries to avoid venom. It uses toxin only when the battle for life is inevitable or if the enemy's too close at a dangerous distance. If someone asked me where I would never go, I would definitely say the deserts of Australia. However, if I were to say the opposite, a place that just draws attention and makes you want to go there, it's Cayo Santiago, or as they call it, Monkey Island. This place is inhabited entirely by rhesus monkeys. Many of you probably have no idea what these macaques are, and even less how they ended up on a separate island. But don't worry, I'll tell you all about it. So the primates were put there on purpose. It was done, of course, by humans. The first events connected with this experiment date back to 1938. More than 400 monkeys were brought to the island. Today, this place is full of descendants of the original population, and their total number exceeds 1,000. The answer to the question why was all necessary. In those years, monkeys had already established themselves as a valuable object of biological and medical research. Being the closest relatives of man, primates attracted great interest from scientists in Europe and the USA. But shipping monkeys from the other side of the world remained expensive and difficult, and the hard-earned specimens suffered from all sorts of diseases, especially tuberculosis. That's why specialists decided to take the primates to one particular place so that they could grow and reproduce in peace, and then be used for tests and experiments. Thus, scientists would have clean laboratory animals, and observations of life in the colony would give valuable material to primatologists. This all sounds pretty clear, but it was not so easy to realize the idea. The monkeys did not adapt to the new conditions immediately, and at the beginning of their journey, chaos along with stress awaited them. Despite the help of specialists, primates died from fights with relatives and other diseases they picked up due to ignorance. But this was just an adaptation to the new conditions. Alas, it required sacrifice. After about 6 months, the first cub was born before the scientists' eyes. It was a good sign, and the population began to grow. Scientists working in the colony wrote a huge number of articles and books. The island's rhesus macaques proved to be an ideal object for research in the field of prenatal medicine. A special laboratory was set up to study pregnant females. Neurology, blood types, and even the genetics of macaques were studied here. The skeletons of the dead, by the way, also served for the benefit of science. All of them were collected and taken to the museum for separate research. Now, for example, there are thousands of complete skeletons of rhesus macaques in the museum's collection. The only thing that people could not avoid was natural disasters. Alas, this place is rich in hurricanes. At least 3 of them hit the island to the fullest. Despite this, the primates continue to thrive, even as their population is regularly decimated and moved to the city. Pig Beach. As you may have already guessed by this uncomplicated name, now we're going to talk about a certain island full of pigs. Pig Beach is an uninhabited place in the Bahamas. If any of you want to find it on a map, look for a boot-shaped island. That's what it is. People don't live there, and the place is full of feral pigs. Tourists often come to visit them to see for themselves. What do the pigs do there? Well, basically, they're at a perpetual resort. They sunbathe on the sand, swim in warm seawater, and generally do not deny themselves anything. What's even funnier is that nobody knows the exact reason why this happened. Perhaps their distant ancestors were put there on purpose by some cunning merchants eager to make money out of it. Either way, if it really was someone's labor, it worked 100%. People from all over the world come to see islander pigs. The animals are used to such attention and react calmly to it. They know that if someone comes to visit them, it means that they're not empty-handed. This cannot but be happy. Leave a like if you'd like to visit this place too. Kodiak. This is the name of the next amazing location I'd like to tell you about. It's an American island with an area of just over 3,500 square miles. It's located off the coast of Alaska. Take it from me, it's the very place where, unlike Pig Beach, you don't want to come at all. The name of the island comes from an Eskimo word meaning point, and I think I understand why it was given. Being here, one is really walking on the edge of a knife. One wrong move and a careless tourist will immediately become fresh and hearty prey for a bear. And though the island is full of other animals, the bear is given special attention here. They appeared on this island a long time ago. The purpose was quite clear and understandable. Each bear wanted to escape from the harsh climate and find food. Over time, the average air temperature increased, but the animals liked the island so much that they refused to leave it. And it would seem that they should have decreased in size, but natural intelligence and survival abilities played their role. Predators began to use their omnivorousness and, depending on the season, to eat both fatty foods and berries and greens. One bad thing, at a certain point there were too many bears on the island. As a rule, they prefer a solitary lifestyle and keep to themselves. However, doing the same in the conditions of the island is, mildly speaking, problematic. Despite all of this, they managed to resolve the conflict and even learned to choose males and females for reproduction. I don't know how true it is, but it's said that at one point the density of Kodiak bears on this island was about 20 per half square mile. Many of you probably think there's nothing special about a pig or bear islands. It's just natural, and it's normal for animals to settle there. Yes, I agree, it may indeed be the norm. However, how do you explain a whole temple where people take care of rats? It's called Karni Mata, and it's in India. Rats are not just loved there, they're also seriously worshipped, protected, and regularly fed. And no, these are not tame or decorative animals, but the most ordinary gray rats which quietly settled in the temple. There are about 20,000 rodents, although the exact number is impossible to establish. All of them run on the marble, climb the bars, take food from hands, drink milk from large flat bowls, and constantly squeak. They're looked after by temple attendants who do everything possible for their comfort. A heated floor allows the rodents to move comfortably on the marble, even in winter. And many tunnels have already been created underground exclusively for the rats. In Karni Mata, these creatures feel safe. Humans, potentially their main enemy, are not a threat there. Cats, not even within half a mile. Birds of prey can't harm the rodents either, as the temple's courtyard has a fine net at a height of a few feet. Well, and probably all this time the main question bothers you. And why are these rodents treated like this? What did they do? How can I put it? There's no definitive answer. So I look forward to hearing your theories on this in the comments. It'll be interesting to read. Sable Island. This is the name of a small Canadian island I'd like to tell you about. It's located in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean, 112 miles southeast of Nova Scotia. According to official data, there are only 5 permanent residents on the island, and that's the staff of the meteorological station. However, I wouldn't tell you about it for nothing. Horses have lived here with humans since ancient times. Who brought them here? Again, nobody knows. They say it's not the work of man at all. They say that once, in the past, a ship carrying horses crashed nearby. People were not saved, however the animals were. They got to the land and began to develop here. Horses have lived on the island for hundreds of years and have become extremely hardy. Despite that, they shrank to the size of large ponies. They live in herds and feed on wild peas and some plants that are only found on this island. According to some reports, there are about 300 ungulates on Sable. People liked them so much that in 1960 they were taken under the protection of the state. In addition to horses, there is also the largest colony of harbor seals. There's not much information about them. Alas, access to this place is only possible after obtaining a special permit, so there are almost always no visitors. All the previous places we've talked about were quite interesting and, in a way, harmless. Animals develop in the background and do not touch anyone, only if people do not bother them too much. However, the next island, called Ramree, has a completely different character. To begin with, on this very island, there was a full-scale battle between Great Britain and Japan. It was still during the Second World War, in the period from the 14th of January to the 22nd of February, 1945. But we're now interested not in the course of those events and not in the forces of the sides, but in one serious factor that came before the soldiers of both armies. People thought that the most dangerous thing on the island was a huge number of aggressive mosquitoes and terrible poisonous spiders. However, they were wrong. The most frightening thing was the presence of a huge number of crocodiles that were hiding in the most unexpected places. According to the stories of former military men, they could attack no one and hear the screams of their enemies. Obviously, at this very moment, the opponents were fighting against nature, something more serious. It seemed that there were about a dozen voracious reptiles. Then the number increased several times, and then even exceeded 100. The toothy reptiles rose up from the dark and murky marsh bog to grab and drag a new victim after them. Because of the fog over the swamp and the hordes of insects, it was impossible to spot the crocodiles. According to official figures, they killed over 1,000 soldiers, and the victors of the war jokingly called these crocodiles their most valuable allies. And not to end on a sad note, I suggest that you take a look at a place called Okunoshima. It will definitely help you forget those passions of the past years and enjoy the beauty of nature. A horde of rabbits. This is a small island in the inland sea of Japan near Takahara. It's accessible by ferry. It's full of campsites, hiking trails, and places of great historical interest. Although, on the other hand, who cares about history when you have a huge number of cutest rabbits running around right under your feet? According to one version, they are the descendants of the first test subjects of the chemical laboratory that existed here. According to another, in 1971, Japanese school children brought 8 hat rabbits and they quickly multiplied. So much so that by 2013, their numbers on the island had grown to about 700. What else I like about this island is the complete absence of predators. Tourists are forbidden to take cats or dogs with them. It's a strict rule. As a thank you for your conscientious approach, rabbits will gladly climb into people's arms, even despite the fact that they're wild. In the local hotel, you can also buy special feed for just $1. It's not difficult for people, but it's pleasant for the animals. Narcisse Snake Dens. You know what this place is? This is one of the largest clusters of slithering creatures in the whole world. It's located in the Canadian province of Manitoba, and every spring, when nature comes to life again, tens of thousands of red-sided garter snakes come out of their burrows for the purpose of mating. They say that at least 50,000 snakes live there. In addition to this amazing fact, the way they mate is no less striking. Males crawl out of their homes first, and then they expect representatives of the opposite sex. As they're much smaller in number, the males react instantly to an individual appearing on the horizon and in a burst of passion get tangled into a full-fledged balls. These very balls can consist of dozens of males. In general, the sight is definitely not for the faint-hearted. The only good thing is that their zeal is nothing but a natural interest. Snakes are not venomous, as well as completely harmless. That's why, by the way, tourists often come to such places wishing to overcome their fear and even pick up one of the snakes in their hands. The main thing is to do it in the open air and not somewhere in a cave, because inhabitants of closed places may not be so positive and kind. If you don't see them on the street either, then you may want to head towards the cracks formed by groundwater. After all, these are the places where young snakes are left alone after being abandoned by their parents. There, they successfully survive the Canadian winter and become fully independent. Red-sided garter snakes prey on all sorts of small animals, like frogs, toads, salamanders, leeches, and worms. Despite this, other predatory and stronger inhabitants do not treat them more favorably. For example, bears, hawks, or raccoons can gladly eat one or two snakes without remorse. The only thing that saves the slithering creatures is their sense of danger. It's just like Spider-Man's spider sense, only here it's not about fantastic, it's about an ordinary forked tongue. The animal often sticks it out of its mouth to sense and scan its surroundings. Their inner ears also help them sense every new vibration, project the environment clearly onto themselves, avoid any dangerous contact, and so on. Eurasian penduline tit. This is the name of this beautiful songbird, which differs from many other birds in that it takes the construction of its house very seriously, with special care and attention. It's quite easy to realize that this bird is in front of you. After all, not every time a feathered creature wears a robber's mask, right? The distinguishing features do not end here, because, in my opinion, the main one is the home of the Eurasian penduline tit. Their nests resemble some kind of knitted gloves or something like that. The males take the construction of their house responsibly, because since the birds themselves are not remarkable, the females will look at their nests, the very place where they can reproduce. Parents from childhood share with their baby chicks various tips for the future. The father secretly tells its baby son that it should choose a place near a river. A tree with branches hanging down to the water is the perfect romantic spot. Along with this, it's not superfluous to rob someone else's already abandoned nest. Firstly, the bird has a trademark mask. No one will identify it. And secondly, the nest is abandoned, so there's nothing criminal in this. Once the site is found and the materials are gathered, the 3-week project will begin. Using cattail, down, cobwebs, branches, and other useful debris that retains heat. The construction of the nest begins with the weaving of the ring, and then the walls are built up on this frame. It's not uncommon for females to join the male during the construction process. They see how handy and skillful it is and decide to keep it company. While it will strengthen the walls, the female will equip the bottom where it will lay eggs, skillfully hiding them from the male. After all, if it sees the eggs in its nest, it will immediately fly away, begin to build a new home, and look for another companion. In one season, the Eurasian penduline tit breaks the hearts of 7 to 10 ladies. But truth be told, it should be noted that one female is lucky. The one that ends up with it at the end of the season will become its mate. Swiftlets. These birds of the swifts family are much more reliable than the Eurasian penduline tit, and much more is an understatement. Swiftlets are monogamous to the core. As soon as they find their mate, they immediately start building a nest. But it's not made of stones or even twigs. It's much more interesting. The main material for construction is their own saliva. It contains an insane amount of protein, because of which makes the mucus become viscous and quickly freezes like superglue. By joint efforts, their nest is built quite quickly, and then the care of the eggs begins. The father takes turns incubating the eggs for a month, and when the chicks finally hatch, the father and mother start all over again. Yes, even the nest is rebuilt. The wheel of life goes round and round 4 times a year. Imagine how many chicks a couple can produce in their 10-year life. People scrupulously watch swiftlets, but not for the sake of researching their chicks, as it may seem at first glance. They're much more interested in their saliva, which is considered a scarce product and a delicacy sold in elite restaurants in the form of soups. Termites. I'm sure you've all heard of these creatures, but these insects are much more interesting than you imagined. They create underground cities the size of entire countries and destroy settlements by eating up to 992 pounds of wood a year. How many of these groups are there? You can count for yourself. All we know is that the weight of all termites is equal to the weight of all vertebrates on Earth. Of course, when a horde of termites is so massive and unstoppable, they need appropriate lairs, houses where they can live comfortably and conveniently. Houses are built by so-called worker termites. This is a caste of laborers which are engaged in construction literally around the clock. They almost never rest and work for the good of their society. All those structures of chewed pulp, mud, saliva, and other things several feet high are their work. But structures above the ground are only a small part of what they can do. An underground city in Brazil, for example, broke all possible records. Its area was 88,800 square miles. It became the largest biological network in the world. Scientists believe that it took at least 3,800 years to build it. Leaf-curling spider. It's a creepy homebody which is ready to leave its shelter only in a few cases: to eat, to repair its cobweb, or to find the love of its life. Only the males bother with the latter. They look for available females and move into their house. There they'll have total idyll, harmony, and love. The couple will be so caring and sensitive that as soon as they have babies, they immediately put them in special leaves, which will serve as full-fledged home for them. The mother wraps this kind of kinder surprise with an additional layer of cobweb and hangs it far away from its home in dense foliage. The clutch weighs up to 200 milligrams, almost 4 times as much as the female spider itself. The leaf layer helps the young to defend themselves from predators. Surprisingly, when the spider grows up, it doesn't leave the leaf. On the contrary, it'll get much more accustomed to it, then it will live in it further, leaving the lair only for reasons mentioned above. Gloomy octopus. I bet that none of us would have noticed the lair of this creature if we were underwater with a snorkel. The gloomy octopus, despite its pessimistic outlook on life, skillfully disguises itself using many improvised materials. At the same time, it communicates well with its congeners and uses their help when necessary. Together, they can even create entire cities in which the cephalopods will hide in the algae and warn their congeners of impending danger. The octopus was named Gloomy not because of its strange look, as it may seem at first, but probably because of the dark coloring of the body and the solitary lifestyle. Yes, you heard everything right. I said solitary. That story with cities and socialization is rather an exception to the rule. During the day, the octopus hides in its nest, surrounded by stones and rubble, which it's collected for protection, and at night it moves out to hunt. You have to admit that the gloomy sea dweller builds great houses. Even if you look closely, it's very difficult to detect its lair, and the fish swimming at high speeds have almost no chance of seeing it at all. Trapdoor spider. And this is another creature that prefers to hide in a house. In its case, it's a burrow. To dig it, it uses its jaws and front legs. Some families even have special rakes on the surface of the chelicerae which rake up the soil. No camouflage with stones or leaves is out of the question here, because the trapdoor spider chose a more advanced way and learned to build full-fledged doors. They're made of soil particles, bark, and blades of grass, attached with the help of the cobweb. The doors can be either thicker or, on the contrary, very thin. It all depends on the territory where the trapdoor spider lives, as well as on its personal preferences. Spiders, termites. Let's continue the topic of insects. How do ants hunt? Which creatures do they prey on? How is their society organized? And what wonders of construction can they create? Stay tuned, and I'll show you. Hunt. Ants feed mainly on sap, dead aphids, and other sucking insects. This does not require any special technique, but when it comes to the larvae feeding or defense, they can't do without hunting and fighting. It's not uncommon for ants to hunt alone. This is what they do in case of small or non-threatening prey. For example, one ant can easily deal with termites or even small cockroaches. Sometimes only one bite is enough to neutralize the prey, after which the ant usually brings it back to the dwelling. If the prey poses a threat, or if it's of hefty size, the ant first tries to poison it by using formic acid. However, it's not uncommon for ants to work together. A colony of ants is one superorganism in which each individual performs a different function. With their numerous troops, ants are able to hunt even very large animals, such as big grasshoppers or bug sticks. Ants attack their prey on all sides and start biting and carve it, aiming at its most vulnerable spots. They use their mandibles to inject acids and toxins into the prey's body. An insect can hardly withstand such an onslaught. Let alone an insect, sometimes ants even attack slugs and crabs, and the hunt is successful even in such cases. The principle's the same. A joint attack by ants from all sides. Especially crazy ants can even attack a snake. However, in this case, hunting usually has only a protective function. But more often, ants fight with each other. However, not within the same colony. On the contrary, there's usually complete order within the colony, and each ant tries to support its congeners. The exception may be overpopulation or the presence of sick and useless individuals. Then ants may get rid of some of their congeners. Wars between colonies of different ants and even ants of different species are common. As a rule, such battles are fought over territory. Interestingly, ants, being smart insects, do not stage stupid massacres trying to crush the enemy by numbers alone. Ants use tactics. Usually, the weakest ants get in the first rows, and their task is to get as far as possible and take as many enemies with them as possible. Next comes experienced fighters, which take over the territory and kill the remaining enemies. The colony that defeats the enemy wins the territory and expands. In addition, ants sometimes raid on other anthills and nests. This can be a full-fledged stealth operation. Ants must invade quietly and inconspicuously to make everything as perfect as possible. What's interesting is that ants not only eliminate enemies and take over territories, but they can also take insects captive. Other ants are dragged by force to the winning colony, where they'll work together with the others from now on. It's amazing how ants are similar to humans in terms of fighting. However, that's not the only similarity. Like us, ants have domestic animals, but not to make them happy or to cheer them up, but purely for beneficial purposes. Ants' main domestic animals are aphids. Ants, they're something like cows for us. Aphids feed on sap and secrete sugar as waste in the form of sweet droplets called honeydew. It's an important source of energy for ants, so they create whole colonies of aphids to feed themselves. In turn, ants value and appreciate the aphids. They provide them with food by moving them from plant to plant and protect them from their natural enemies, different insects. Aphids overwinter in a warm anthill, and ants care for their eggs as they do for their own. Hierarchy. At the beginning of the episode, I said that a colony of ants is essentially one superorganism. They act cohesively, cooperatively, and efficiently. And this is not just because they're hard workers. This is largely due to the hierarchy of the insects. The main individual in an ant colony is the queen ant or the ant mother. It's usually the largest ant in the entire colony and can easily be distinguished from the others. The queen's main task is to produce offspring. Interestingly, the queen usually mates with males only once during the so-called mating flight. In doing so, the queen receives the male's semen supply, which is used gradually throughout its life. Such a female searches for a new place, establishes a colony, and becomes a queen, laying eggs all its life and reproducing. This can last for as long as 20 years. Males do not play a particularly useful role. Many of them die after mating. So it's females, which sexual system is suppressed during the queen's life, that form the basis of an ant colony. Most of the ants we've ever seen are females. They're divided into two main castes: soldiers and workers. Usually these soldiers are larger than the workers. Their task is to protect the queen and the eggs, guard the anthill, food, aphids, and participate in combat operations, which I already told you about. These are taking over territories and raiding on other insect nests. The soldiers also sometimes help the workers with large prey. They bite it into smaller pieces, which the workers already drag away on their own to the anthill. The worker ants are the most numerous. As a rule, we see just them. Each of them has its own tasks. For example, some workers are engaged only in building and restoring anthills. Others are responsible for obtaining supplies and food and delivering them to their dwellings. Others are a kind of farmers. They work with aphids, spread them on plants, and collect their honeydew. Not particularly experienced or young workers tend to work inside the anthill. They set up housekeeping inside, dig new passages and cells, and keep an eye on the larvae. And some workers are in liaison with the soldiers and provide food for the warriors. As a rule, the functions of an ant worker do not change for almost the whole life. Only age. When an old ant is no longer suitable for a certain activity, or sudden death of most of the colony can affect the change of activity. Building. The main home of any ant colony is, of course, the ant hill. It may just seem like a sloppy hill of twigs. In fact, it's an incredibly complex and epic structure with several levels and everything ants need. Some may not know it, but an anthill is not just that hill. It's only the above-ground part at all, called the dome. There's also an underground part. It goes deep into the soil and has complex passages with wide cavities. An anthill appears in the place that the queen chooses at the foundation of its colony. It sits on the ground, pulls off its wings, tying itself down to the place, and digs a small nest where it lays its first eggs. When the first workers are born, they begin to build an anthill around this nest. Gradually, the number of workers increases. They drag soil, sand, clay, twigs, pine needles, and so on to the nest, and also dig passages, tunnels, and stuff. This is how an anthill appears, along with a full-fledged colony. Inside it, you can find separate chambers for storing food, raising larvae, and wintering. Anthills are very fragile. You may have broken them yourself more than once as a child, seeing them in the woods. They can also be destroyed by weather, for example by heavy rain. Ants, of course, will be angry because of this, but not for long. Soon the hard workers will get down to business and quickly restore the dwelling. Sometimes anthills can reach 3 feet in height and have an incredible system under the ground. That's cool, but it's not the limit at all. Occasionally, ant colonies can be so large that even a huge anthill is not enough. Then the insects build entire cities. One of them was found a few years ago in Brazil. Scientists dug up a city that was once home to millions of ants. The area of the city was about 5,000 square feet, and the maximum depth of the underground tunnels was 85 feet. In total, the ants excavated about 40 tons of soil to create mazes, roads, passageways, chambers, and cells. Scientists believe that the hard work to create the city is comparable to the construction of the Great Wall of China by humans. The fact that ants managed to build such a mega anthill once again confirmed the scientists' belief that the ant community is an amazing superorganism. Spider wasp. The giant centipede can be called the killer of mice, and the spider wasp is the killer of spiders. These creatures are not as large as that creepy centipede. They reach only 1 inch in length, and that's the maximum. But this doesn't prevent them from successfully hunting quite large spiders. Actually, spiders are not selective prey of spider wasps. They deliberately look for these arthropods. Even the strong web is not always able to stop these killers. Spider wasps crawl on it as well as the spiders themselves. When attacking the prey, the wasp does a dance consisting of sharp movements. The first paralyzing stroke of the sting disarms the spider as it falls precisely in the area of its powerful jaws. The second blow is applied to the chest and immobilizes the body and limbs. Then the wasp has a new task: to carry the trophy to a suitable burrow. If there isn't one at the ready, the insect digs out its own. Then it grabs the spider with its jaws and drags it along the ground. The wasp has to rise periodically in the air without its heavy prey to check the way. Having placed the spider in its burrow, the wasp lays eggs on it, falls asleep, and camouflages the entrance. After a few days, a larva emerges from the egg, which begins to eat the still living but completely immobile prey. Wolverine. If all the previous animals may have been new to you, then everyone has definitely heard of the wolverine. It's a well-known fact that these animals are not very big. They weigh about 33 to 44 pounds and aren't even 3.5 feet long. It's known that they're predatory, aggressive, and crazy. But do you know how crazy they are? For example, a wolverine can fight a caribou weighing over 220 pounds, defeat it, and then devour it. Of course, a wolverine won't eat a deer in one go. It's not a black swallower, but it can easily devour a part of a deer. Even wolves may get it. Sometimes a wolverine fearlessly fights several wolves at a time. Generally, wolves win, but in a one-on-one fight, a wolverine can defeat a wolf. According to some reports, a pack of wolverines can even defeat a polar bear, but there's no official confirmation. Golden Eagle. And now let's move into the sky, where the golden eagle reigns. This is the largest eagle in the world, reaching almost 3.2 feet in length and weighing up to 13 to 15 pounds. Basically, the golden eagle hunts a variety of small-sized game such as hares and rodents, but sometimes some bigger animals are caught in its paws and beak. For example, wolves, which suffer from wolverines, or foxes. They're clearly larger than golden eagles, but the eagles are not afraid of this. Their incredible strength is enough to lift a giant animal in the air. After that, golden eagles usually drop their prey down, it crashes, and the bird of prey proceeds to dinner. The ability to eat larger prey than itself can be called a superpower, and so all the animals I've told you about can be considered unusual. But other animals also have superpowers. Some jump incredibly, some are very strong, and some can shoot blood or heat up like the sun. Keep watching to see these and other super animals. Dung beetle. No less cool is the next animal from this episode. Everyone's heard of this insect. Everyone knows that the dung beetle is constantly busy rolling and pushing its dung ball. But what's so interesting about it? Well, the ball seems light and small only to us. To the beetle, it's an enormous weight. Dung beetles themselves weigh a couple of grams, but they push a ball of weight up to 1.7 ounces. For comparison, it's about the same as if a person were pushing a car weighing 1.5 tons forward all day. But this isn't the limit. A few years ago, scientists conducted an experiment and found that the dung beetle is able to lift a weight equivalent of 1,141 of its body weight. This is the ultimate power lifter. Desert horned lizard. Each animal defends itself against its enemies in its own way. Some emit a foul-smelling liquid. Some run away. This lizard deals with its enemies bloodily. If a predator attacks it, it shoots blood out of its own eyes. It aims at the eyes of the enemy. Its blood has a disgusting taste and causes severe irritation because venoms from ants eaten by the lizard accumulate in it. The superhero reptile can spend a third of its blood volume on epic shots without harming itself. Pistol shrimp. And the next animal is capable of performing real miracles, unless, of course, blood shots don't seem like a miracle to you. The pistol shrimp is a first-rate marksman. One of its claws is longer than the other. Scientists call it a pistol. That's because with this claw, the shrimp is able to click with incredible force and speed. Squeezing and unclenching the claw at the speed of a bullet, the animal shoots jets of hot water at its opponents. Why hot? Because the insane speed of the click causes a flash of light, and for a split second heats up the pistol shrimp's claw to 5,000 degrees Celsius. That's about the same temperature as the surface of the sun. In addition, the click is also very loud. At the moment of the click, the volume reaches 210 decibels, which is even louder than the sound of a jet fighter taking off. Thanks to such manipulations, the pistol shrimp is able to stun the fish it hunts or drive away predators. They'll swim away in terror after the demonstration of such an unusual gun. That's all, guys. What superpower would you like to have? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.